topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
The National Alliance for Youth Sports was born out of a desire to bring order to the world of organized sports for children in America. While for the most part, children have a great experience playing sports, far too often parents and coaches lose perspective. This program is aimed at bringing some of America's best experts to talk about what we can do to change the atmosphere of win at all cost and parent poor behavior to one that focuses on children having a positive learning experience through sports. Here's our host, Fred Eng, the founder of the National Alliance for Youth Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to I think this is now the 15th episode, I can't believe it, of Why Johnny Hates Sports. And have you ever lost your cell phone? I lost my cell phone this morning. I'm panically running around looking for it. Got my next door neighbor to come and help me. And guess where it ends up? My wife and my daughter are on their way from West Palm Beach to Charleston, South Carolina, and it's in the car. So anyway, with that, I introduced this morning our program, which is about travel teams in youth sports, and we couldn't have a better person to lead off this 4-part series talking about travel teams. And her name is Misty Adams. And let me tell you about Misty. I'm looking down here at her credits. First of all, she's a board member of the National Alliance for Youth Sports. And then she's a certified youth sport administrator. But then she is the superintendent of the National Trails Park District in Ohio, which is in Springfield, Ohio. And I know you probably might remember Springfield, Ohio, but I'm not going to bring that up. So with that, let me welcome Misty Adams. Morning, Misty.
Good morning, Fred. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I want to thank you very much for being on the show. Like I mentioned, you are leading hitter in this whole thing. So tell me something very briefly about the district that you're the superintendent.
Well, I'm from National Trail Parks and Recreation District in the Clark County Park District. We oversee all of Clark County in Ohio. Yes, Springfield, Ohio does fall into that, and it's been an interesting year here in Springfield. But we have multiple soccer fields, softball fields, an aquatic center, baseball fields, nature parks, historical parks. So we kind of do a little bit of everything here in our department.
Yeah, doing everything. You talk about all the fields and park areas and whatnot. I mean, I go back quite a ways to where recreational sports was seeing ball fields being leased by local parent groups and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, we start to see those fields aren't filled with just recreational programs. You see out there these elite coaches and these elite players and their parents and whatnot. What's your take on all of that as a recreation superintendent?
I've been doing this for quite a few years, so I have seen the change from everything was recreation. Everybody just goes and plays in their neighborhood. I've played sports my whole life. When I was younger and played sports, the travel team was we traveled from one town to the next door and played an all-star game. What I've seen now is I truly believe there's a need for a select program or a travel program for kids that do want to take the next step, but it's kind of starting to turn, in my opinion, that travel has become the new recreation league, that there are no longer the neighborhood teams where the kids all get together, go to the same school, play together, can ride their bikes to the fields for practices. That has drastically changed over the last 20 years.
But what does that do? I mean, takes the value of what recreational sports are all about. I mean, with kids that are out there, they're just coming there, the parents sign them up for whatever little league sport that it happens to be, and they expect them to go out and have fun with their friends and whatnot. And now with all of that, like you say, it's changing. And what do you suppose drove all this to happen?
I believe there's a few different things. One, it's for the parent to be able to say, well, my child's on a travel team or my child's on a select team, kind of sounds more exotic, gives more credibility, I guess, to a league that my kid's good enough, plays hard enough. I've taught my kid well enough to be on a travel team. And when they first started years ago, again, I believe there were those group of kids that do need the next level, that are a little more advanced, that are a little more competitive. But now it's kind of become, I always laugh and say, it went from select sports to club sports, because if you have enough money, you can join the club and they'll find a spot for you somewhere, which is great. I hear all kind of kids love them and building memories and things like that. But the time commitment, a lot of parents, I don't think they understand the huge time commitment and the financial commitment it takes for those. And what I'm finding, a lot of our travel select programs, maybe my coaches that coached for me in the recreation department last year, that are now moved up to the travel or whatever, and the fee has increased, tenfold, but they're same coach, same fields. They're just traveling further away to play teams.
Yeah, when I wrote the book, Why Johnny Hates Sports, one of the things I said in there that the people ask of what drives parents to do what they're doing with their kids in sports. And a couple of things that I said was it's ego and greed. And the ego part of it is something you touched on a minute ago of my kid he's not just a rec player. He's not just out there playing with these little kids that don't really know how to play. My kid is really an elite player. And then the other part of it is greed. I mean, having all the money that they have to put into it. I have a friend of mine that probably spends $5,000 a year just to travel around. And that's got to really hurt a family budget unless you got a boatload of money.
Yeah, if they're only paying $5,000 a year, they're getting off pretty cheap. I've heard of families that pay $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year. And something that we just had some school levies here in Ohio, how we fund our schools is a little weird, but some school levies. And it always amazes me the people who won't be willing to pay, out of their taxes, $150 a year to support their schools. But those same people are paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a season for their kid to play sports. It's in my mind, it's kind of like, where has our priorities gone? That we're telling kids our schools aren't worth $100 a year, but we'll let you go play baseball for $5,000. And so it's kind of our priorities have shifted of what we think our kids need. I don't know that we've ever stopped to think and ask our kids what they want. I try to ask a lot of kids, what do you want? They want to play with their friends. They want to have fun. They want to get out and do stuff. They want to learn new things. A lot of kids, I was very fortunate, my daughter had the opportunity to play travel ball. We were ready for her to play some. And she said, you know what, Mom, I'd rather on the weekends go to the lake and swim. I'd rather hang out with my friends on the weekend. I don't want to be traveling every weekend to go play a sport. I want to play sports just because I enjoy them. So that kind of opened my eyes, because I was kind of like, oh, if my daughter's not playing, the elite volleyball, she's not going to keep up with her friends or all that stuff. So I've kind of seen it from, I also coach volleyball, so I've seen it from a coaching aspect, a youth sports administrator aspect, and a parent aspect. And there's a fine line that you have to walk between all of those.
Yeah, you use some word that I remember using so many times talking about parents, and that's vicariously living through your child. Some of the things you just said sounded like you were vicariously living through your child.
Because it's hard not to.
That's right. It's absolutely, it's kind of like a disease that we all have. is, when our kids play sports, our kids, we wanted them in everything. My sport was wrestling in high school and college, and yeah, I had three of my kids that wrestled. Did they want to? I think so, but the big question I have many times is that here you have a 6-year-old, and that 6-year-old, you determine many times, most times, that Billy or Mary is going to play little league baseball, softball, whatever sport it is. We never ask them. We never say, all right, I'm going to give you a list of things. I'm going to give you art and music and drama, sports, and what? Check off one of those and tell us what you want to do. I think if parents did that, it would help tremendously for them to be able to say, well, maybe Billy is not an athlete. So, what do you think?
We, again, at National Trail, we are a multi programming type of thing. And we just hired a person. She's been there for about a year now, and she is very artistic, very arts and crafts oriented. And I was actually just talking to her this morning. I spoke to a group of 5th and 6th graders yesterday about what they want from Parks and Recreation, what they see. And over half of them were like, I really like art and I want to do drawings and things. So it's been interesting for me for the past few years to see the transformation that we're not just a sports league at National Trail, that kids are loving arts and crafts and they want to have time to do that. And they want to have time to be in the band. They want to have time to just be a kid. And I think so often, the kids are like, oh yeah, I really enjoy travel baseball. But they're hearing the parents at the hotels sitting down in the lobbies or whatever going, oh, this is this is our family vacation this year. We can't afford to go on a family vacation because we had to come to this. The kids hear that and they know that, oh, I don't want to say I don't want to do this because my parents are put not necessarily directly to the kid, but kids hear things. I see a lot of memes on Facebook or Instagram or something that are funny, and it's like the baseball mom and she's got, luggage and stuff and all this, or the baseball mom's vacation, the baseball dad's vacation. And it just kind of joking, kind of poking at, we do spend thousands and thousands of dollars on our kids' sports, to where what could we be doing with that elsewise? Could we be going to Disney World? Could we be going to the lake to fish? Could we be going, to grandma's house in Kentucky or anything like that? But that so much has been put into that sport that child's kind of afraid to say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because I've heard how mom and dad have got so much invested in this as well. And I think sometimes we just need to step back and pull that back a little bit. I would love to see like maybe a combination of like more of the local leagues that travel, maybe 1 or 2 weekends as opposed to every weekend or every other weekend or things like that. We also have a college level baseball stadium that we hold a lot of tournaments in, and those tournaments start at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning. And I'm like, as a parent, what kind of job do you have that you can be there all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and still have a job? I guess that's my thing. It's putting such a strain on all aspects of the family life, not just the evening sports teams.
Yeah, it's amazing. It makes me recall back to a time I remember when the kids were playing, and in Florida they had the baseball championship, but it was only in the state of Florida. And I remember reading an article in a paper about this guy that his kid was on that team, and this was before travel teams. It was like you were talking about. You could go to the next town and win the championship. In this case, it was the state. And this guy's going to go regardless. And they told him at his job, now, if you go, you're going to be fired because you got to be here. Guess what? He went and got fired. So it's that thing that we talked about a few moments ago, and that, falling down in this deep hole of our child, that's our flesh and blood, but I wonder if it's more than that. And when I say more than that, what I mean is that there is some kind of vicarious thing that we cannot escape unless somebody puts the pressure on us to escape. By that, what I'm saying is, you're on a leadership team with certified youth sports administrators across the country. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to say that we certified youth sports administrators are going to do a national survey about the effects of travel team on kids, and surveying and ask the kids after they've been through travel team play, what was their overall experience? Would they rate it the greatest thing or the worst thing that happened to them? Wouldn't that be rather interesting? And then take those statistics. If they showed, like you mentioned, that a lot of kids would say, I'd rather be at the lake going swimming with my friends. You found out that that was the overwhelming results of a survey. Wouldn't that be the impetus to make some kind of national rule that says travel teams can only do so much, like you said, maybe 2 times a month or whatever,
Mhm.
just limit all the nonsense.
Yeah, I've always thought of something asking kids that way, or a lot of people you hear, well, they got to get this because they want to play in college or they're going to do that. I wish, looking back now, my daughter's graduated from college, but those 5 or 6 years when she, could have been playing travel ball, should have been playing travel ball, whatever, asking, okay, how much did you spend this season? Oh, it was $2,000 to get in the league. We spent, $3,000 on hotels, food, whatever, and said, okay, I'm going to take that $5,000 my daughter didn't spend for that season and put it in a bank account. By the end of, her 5 or 6 years through middle school and high school, we probably would have had more than she would have ever gotten for a scholarship. There's all kind of stats out there about how many people actually, high school athletes go on to play D1, D2, get athletic scholarships and all of that. Again, at my coaches meeting, a lot of times I'm like, this is great if kids want to do this, but really there's way more scholarship money for academics and education and things like that. So instead of a pitching coach, maybe you should buy your kid an English tutor, something along those, that if that's your mentality of it, this is going to help them get in college and this is going to pay for their college, chances are it's not. There are that few that absolutely, they do need that. They are absolutely rock stars and they just have that God-given talent that's going to get them that athletic scholarship. But for the most part, most kids are not going to get full ride scholarships or anything like that. They're not getting a good return on their investment, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. A couple of weeks ago, we had a guy that was a minor league baseball player in the Cincinnati organization, and I asked him a number of questions about when you started out. He was typical. He said, I started 6 years old, and my dad gave me a glove. We did all the things in the backyard, and I advanced, and I got all the way up to the college all-stars and destined to make it in the majors. And he got signed, and then all hell broke loose that
Yeah.
he just didn't make it. And so, I was thinking while you were saying that I was saying to him, that the statistics are that the baseball player kids that sign a major league contract, less than 2% ever play in the major leagues. And you put that in front of parents and say, okay, probably the statistics are pretty much the same for like scholarships as you mentioned, and beyond the scholarships or making the Olympic team. The argument would come back from parents of saying, yeah, but they got to try, and we got to try to give them because they have this God-given talent that says they are just this elite, tremendous athlete. And how do you respond to that? That it's just so difficult when that parent sees that child and feels that If I don't spend that $5,000 or $15,000, I'm to blame. I'm guilty for that because I robbed them of this opportunity. Even though you tell me that it's less than 2%, I'm still going to do it.
Fred, if I had that answer, I would be a wealthy woman. It is a battle that we go on. I get a lot of people. We have a very large rec soccer program that, kids, oh, I move my kids to select to make it more competitive. They get more competitive. And I'm always like, well, can you imagine if we brought those 30, 40 kids that are wanting to be competitive back to our rec league? You would have that competitiveness all in that league and you wouldn't have to travel anywhere. If we brought that back, 15 years ago, we were the only volleyball program in town for fifth, sixth, seventh, or fifth and sixth graders. It was kind of before the whole travel volleyball hit this area. And we had some great, I use my niece as a perfect example. She went through our rec program, started in fifth grade, played fifth and sixth grade volleyball, also played in our basketball program, played softball, multi-sport athlete, never did any type of select or travel until she was a freshman in high school. And she did get a scholarship. I mean, she went to a Division II school for volleyball, but it wasn't until she was in high school that she started doing more of the travel, I guess, the junior Olympic volleyball type of thing. And I ask her a lot, and she's like, yeah, it's because it was fun. I enjoyed playing. It wasn't a job. And I feel like so much of this, when you have to go every weekend and you have all your time is designated or assigned for certain sports, that it does start to feel like a job. And as we all know, as adults, we have a long time to work and have a job. So I always try to make, the kids have time, again, to be kids. I employ a lot of high school kids at our different facilities that we have. And it's tough for a high school athlete to have a summer job because they are having summer leagues 3 nights a week. They have workouts 3 mornings a week. They have all this different stuff going on, that for them to have a job, which they're going to probably need to help pay for college, they don't want to miss their sports stuff. So it's a snowball effect that kind of just keeps going. And then at some point in time, will sports go that way to where school sports don't exist anymore and everything is club? Again, we had a school levy up just this last week. And if it failed, we have pay to play sports in our high school, which right now it's like $100 and you pay. And they were talking about how if our levy failed, it was going to go up to $600 to play. And a parent literally said, well, I can't afford $600 for my kid to play in high school. We already pay $1,000 for them to play club. So unfortunately, it used to be the ultimate goal was you got to play varsity in your high school team. Now high school sports are almost kind of like just rec. You get on the bus with their uniform that's been handed down from 3 different generations. You travel, you play, you come home. Or you can be on a club team where they get the nicest, newest uniforms every day with matching bags, and you go stay in nice hotels and all that. It's kind of pushing high school sports out of the way. So I don't know if that's a trend we'll see as we go along, or if at some point in time the bubble will burst and it'll go back to, why am I paying $900 for my kid to go play soccer in 3 states away when we have a great soccer program right here in town that's $75 and I don't have to go away every weekend, and they're getting just as much out of it.
You said the word I wanted to hear. The bubble will burst. Sorry for that. The bubble will burst to me is, look, I get it. I understand that the whole idea of travel teams has got its purpose, and it's got its motivation for parents to pay all that money, do all that travel, the social benefits. I get that and understand that. What I don't get is the reason that I got into recreation anyway is because of seeing the value of kids being able to play sports, and not just at that elite high level. I look out in the ball field right across from my house. I have the perfect place in the world for a recreation person to have windows that opens up to a huge park. And I see, I'm not kidding, hundreds of kids playing soccer for fun. Now I know I live here in South Florida, and for Hispanics, soccer is just a tremendous sport that they grew up with and love. But to see them out there playing and enjoying and laughing, no referees, nothing, just having fun for hours and hours. It's dark out there, and I still see them out there playing. So that's when you say the bubble has to burst, who's going to burst the bubble? Somebody, to me, it seems somewhere, somebody ought to be making a decision to say, yeah, there's a place for everything. Can people like yourself and other certified youth sports administrators, can they be the ones to be able to say, okay, we're going to burst the bubble. We're not going to do away with travel teams or whatnot. We know that we can't tell parents not to do it. It's already reached there. But we got to come up with something that combats that, that says you don't have to spend $15,000. You don't have to deny your kid being able to play other events and not have money for scholarships or whatever. But there has to be something that can be done to be able to say, look, this is an alternative that the parents say, yeah, why do we spend all that money and all that travel and away from work when we could actually be doing what the rec department here has created? What that is, I have no idea. But I think brilliant minds in the field of recreation, collection of, and if they don't, we just continue the same old thing.
Yeah, I just think as a recreation professional, our big challenge in my department anyways, we just got to keep doing what we know is right. Doing the best program as possible, getting, we have certified youth sports administrators, we have accountability, we have credibility. You hear so often of little leagues, independent groups with theft in their accounts, their banking accounts. I hear a lot of, it's very cliquish or political, where the softball president only become president, and that's the only reason her child gets to be the star pitcher. I just think as a recreation, I tell a lot of people, and they're like, well, my child, my kid, and I have to explain to them, I understand you're concerned about your kid, but I have 600 kids in this program that are all my kids. So I have to do what's best for everyone to make sure they are getting playing time, to make sure they have the safest places to play, make sure their coaches have been background checked, and that, they are in a safe place with the best that we can do. I don't guarantee you're getting that in other areas. Hopefully they are. Hopefully these travel groups are doing all the things that they're supposed to do. But I have backing. I have an agency. I have a phone number that's going to be the same this year as it is next year. You have the same person that's running this league for 20 years, as opposed to once their child ages out, then someone else takes it over. My favorite is I get people that call us all the time and want to use our fields because we're a public park, but they don't understand why they can't. They started this team, but they don't have a place to play their games. I was kind of laugh and think, well, that probably should have been a thing you might have wanted to get first before you started a team. You need a place to play, and we're full. We run leagues. We have these things. We work with certain groups that follow our philosophies that, we're giving them first crack at the field because that's our partner with that. So I guess we just have to keep as, rec departments, youth sports administrators, we just have to keep doing our best and hopefully keep proving that we are the professionals. We know what we're talking about, that we have the training, the certifications, the background, it's the credibility to prove that our league is just as good, if not better, fundamentally wise, as some of these pop-up groups.
600 kids are my kids. That's what you said.
So all of them are my kids.
Well, yeah, but that's a great statement to be able to say, especially for a recreation person that is overseeing all these kids playing. And, one of the good things about this podcast and simulcast is the fact that it goes out to 12,500 recreation people. And I just wish so much that this episode would go out directly to every single one of them with a lot of promotion to say, watch this, because this is what's happening in your community. And listen to what Misty Adams has to say about this whole area of recreational sports for kids in your community. So, Misty, listen, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. It's wonderful having you as a member of the board of directors of the National Alliance for Youth Sports. And Kenneth, thank you again so much for being on. So we'll see you at the next board meeting.
All right. Well, thank you, Fred, for being such a great mentor over all these years and for having an organization that does help give us that credibility and that backing and keeps us moving in the right direction.
All right. Have a great weekend.
All right. You too. Hope you find your phone soon.
Okay. I hope I find my phone.
Fred Angs, Billy Jones's father, is more than just a story about a boy and his father. It's an eye-opening journey into the emotional struggles faced by children in the world of competitive sports. As you turn the pages, you'll see how unrealistic expectations and unchecked ambitions can shape, mold, and sometimes break a child's spirit. This book dives deep into the human experiences that resonate with so many and calls on us to reflect on the roles we play in the lives of young athletes.
Well, that's another show. I think, like I mentioned in the beginning, this is either the 14th or 15th that is on every Friday morning at 11 o'clock. So if you're got kids and kids are playing sports or thinking about them playing sports, I think you'll learn a lot from listening to many of the experts around the country that give their advice. So hope to see you here next Friday morning at 11 a.m. on Why Johnny Hates Sports.
This program is sponsored by Sir Durf Publishing in the interest for better sports for kids, better kids for life.